I'm Ian Belina, and I'm joined by Lyn Ulbricht, the mom of the famous creator of Silk Road, Ross Ulbricht, and she's here to share with us the Free Ross movement. So, welcome to the show, Lyn. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, prior to that, let me just take care of a few admin things. So, we'll be taking questions from the audience. If you have any questions, just go to mentimeter.com, Mentimeter or menti.com, menti.com, and use the code 773480. That's 773480 to submit your questions, and we'll have Lyn answer the questions for us. So, welcome to the show, Lyn. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me again. Yeah.
So, where are you calling in from?
I am at Liberty Forum in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's a conference where I'm speaking.
Okay, nice. And what are you speaking about?
My usual topic, Ross and our movement to have his sentence commuted.
Wow. So yeah, I've been seeing this has been trending on Twitter, on social media, on Telegram. Me as somebody who got into crypto much later than Silk Road and everything that happened, I haven't really had a chance to really ask anybody who was intimately involved with everything that went down, right? And it's a pleasure to have you here on the show. So assuming people maybe are brand new to crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin, can you kind of give us a recap of what's been happening?
Sure. Well, when Ross was 26 years old, he got very involved with the Ron Paul campaign and the libertarian movement and Austrian economics, and became passionate about freedom and privacy. And he initially created a video game for people to have the experience of a truly free market. Almost got it published, but then when he didn't, he turned to the internet and created Silk Road, which was intended to be essentially a free market where buyers and sellers could exchange things, whatever they wanted, as long as it didn't hurt a third party, because it was based on the philosophy of voluntary interaction and the do no harm principle. So, for example, things that created victims were prohibited. That included, for example, anything to do with pedophilia or child porn. There was none of that on there. Stolen property, violent services, violent items, they were not allowed. So it was meant to be a peaceful market where people could exchange what they wanted. And many people, because it was private and anonymous, many people chose to exchange drugs, mostly, overwhelmingly, user amounts of cannabis. There were other drugs on there, but they were a small percentage, a minuscule percentage, actually. But they were there. And this was considered by the administration of the site a free choice. You know, it wasn't forcing anyone to do anything. And I'm not defending it. I'm not defending Silk Road even. I'm just saying these are the facts. So he created this site, and it became, but one of the main things about the site was that the only means of exchange was Bitcoin, and it was very little known at the time. Mm-hmm. And Ross saw the potential of monetary freedom through Bitcoin, was very excited about it, told me about it. Even said, I even said to him, should I get some? And he said, no, Mom, it's too volatile. That was when it was probably worth about 50 cents. So that was really unfortunate, but I didn't. I didn't really understand it, pardon me?
So it's known that Silk Road really helped make Bitcoin popular initially.
I've had people say that if it weren't for Silk Road and Ross's vision of it, that Bitcoin wouldn't be known at all, that it wouldn't have gone nowhere. One author said he was the most important figure in Bitcoin history after Satoshi. I don't know that much about, I don't have the real technical grasp of Bitcoin like I'm sure you do, but, I know my son, and I know that he never intended harm. He only intended good. And it may have been, well, obviously it wasn't a good idea. He's serving a double life sentence plus 40 years. And mind you, these are all nonviolent charges. There's no violence in his conviction at all, unlike what you might read in the media.
Prior to
none of that was convicted, charged at trial, and all those other charges that were in another state were dismissed. He has nothing on his record about violence whatsoever.
So prior to the conviction, can you kind of walk us from the inception of the idea, the free market, and then to everything that kind of happened after that?
Well, I'm not really privy to everything that happened after that. I wasn't ever on Silk Road. There is a thing that we put together based on the public record called Railroaded, the targeting and caging of Ross Ulbricht. It's on our website. You can listen to it. You can read it. It has almost 400 corruption involved in this investigation, and how Ross was basically set up to take the fall for this entire site. It's very well known, anecdotally as well as in evidence, that there were many people running that site and going by the name Dread Pirate Roberts, which Ross is being accused of being the only Dread Pirate Roberts. And actually recently a top-level admin, Curtis Green, who is allegedly targeted by DPR to be killed, he's very supportive of us. He doesn't think that person was Ross. And he said, I was DPR for a while. There were corrupt agents all over the site that had free access to everything, including the ability to act as DPR.
Wow.
He thinks they were doing it. A lot of things are sealed, undisclosed, and encrypted in this case still. And there's 2 federal agents who are stealing money from the site, and who knows what they were doing as far as changing evidence and all kinds of things. They're in prison. So a lot of things have not been investigated, but that's kind of typical from what I can tell of what the government does. Is they get their trophy, and that's good enough, and they can put him away for life and say they did it. And meanwhile, the guy who was running and admitted to running Silk Road 2, which was like a copycat site, but only bigger and sold more drugs in a month, he never did any time. He's free. He was in custody 13 days, and now I have no idea where he is, but he is not in jail. And my question is, if Ross is so dangerous and he can never be let out, why is this person who did something bigger free? It's very unfair. I think it's very political. I think it has a lot to do with Bitcoin. I think that was the motivation behind coming after him so hard and the site so hard. And actually that was proven, or to me, substantiated this past March by Snowden documents that were revealed by The Intercept, saying that the NSA was urgently tracking Bitcoin users in March before Ross was arrested in October, which meant in those days, definitely Silk Road. And they were very concerned about it. This is a huge, powerful arm of the government focused on Bitcoin and Bitcoin users, because it was alarming. And that's why I think Chuck Schumer went after him so hard. That's why I think he was brought to New York.
Let's take a step back. So, for me, I think the free market idea is amazing, right? As somebody who was also a supporter of Ron Paul and I guess, independent, right? I definitely like freedom, right? Now, was there any, I guess, hesitancy in terms of creating the software where people could really have a free market in terms of the legalities of it, right? Of people going on there to trade drugs or whatever ended up causing him to be arrested?
I think at the time he was a young idealist who was very on fire for freedom. And I'm not sure that he was very cautious, obviously, or he wouldn't have done it. He's matured a lot now. He's almost 35 years old. He's, you change, you mature. But at the time, I doubt it. I didn't talk to him about it. I didn't know about it. I'd never heard of it. But I doubt it, So, yeah, obviously drugs are illegal.
All right. So anybody, if you have questions, please send them to menti.com, menti.com, and use the code 773480. That's 773480. Now, tell us, what is the Free Ross movement that's trending?
Well, and initially, of course, it was I needed to raise money, because one of the ways the federal government crushes you is it's so expensive to fight them. You have to have lawyers, there's all kinds of expenses. And so my main goal was just to raise enough money, and with help, much from the crypto community, we were able to. And we went all the way to the Supreme Court over some very important issues, which I don't know if you want to get into, but very important issues to all of us, not just to Ross, but we were dismissed. They did not choose to address these issues, and which leaves us all more open to government spying. But in any case, now that we've pretty much exhausted any options in the courts, certainly on direct appeal, our best chance is a commutation from the president. And so, first of all, we have a petition that has passed now, I think 130,000, or it's moving towards 131,000 today. And all it's saying is this sentence is wrong. This is a double life plus 40-year sentence without parole, mind you, for a young guy who is not accused of harming anyone, who is only accused of, and there's questions about how much he ran the website, but of creating and running a website. And honestly, the taxpayer needs to pay $2 million to keep him in prison for life, for the rest of his life, a totally nonviolent person. So even if you disagree with a lot of why he started it or what Silk Road was, and I get it, this sentence sets a terrible precedent for so many people who are excessively sentenced in this country. There's so many people in our prisons right now that have ridiculous sentences, horrible sentences, and the government and others are making a lot of money off of it. And it's shredding our constitutional protections as well. It's cruel and unusual punishment. So even if you don't even have to know the details, all you have to know is the sentence to sign this petition. And you can go to freeross.org and there's a big red banner, or freeross.org/petition. And please sign the petition and share it. My goal is 500,000. I want to be able to go to the president and say, 500,000 people think this is wrong. Please consider this. Just commuting the sentence. We're not even asking for a full pardon or anything. Just adjust this sentence. It is so wrong.
Now, has anything like this been done before, where the president pardons somebody based on signed petitions like this?
Oh, I think they have influenced presidents. An example with President Obama, he pardoned Tim Tyler, who had about over 400,000 signatures, and he should. I signed his petition. He was a young guy at 23 who sold LSD at a Grateful Dead concert. He'd been in prison for 25 years already. He was in his 40s. And it was because of Bill Clinton's evil third strike law that he was in there. And so many people are. And he had this petition, and I think that got the attention of Michelle Obama, if I remember correctly. But in any case, President Obama did commute his sentence. And in fact, his sister is very supportive of our movement. And so are many others. But, I feel like it's a way of showing support and a way of getting some attention. There's no guarantee. You're right. Right.
Okay.
And there's been others. There have been other successful petitions. Change.org has a list of them, other people who, now it may be a coincidence that they had that petition and their sentence was commuted, but, and Alice Johnson, who was recently, her sentence was recently commuted by President Trump. She had a Change.org petition. I have no idea if that's why it didn't hurt. I think she had over 200,000 or so.
Now, looking into the article or parts of the story, one of the main arguments, I guess, for both parties or concerns were the allegations that he hired, I guess, 5 or 6 hitmen on the dark web. Can you speak?
Those are the allegations, yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, 5 of those allegations were brought by New York. Initially, in the criminal complaint, Ross denied it. And then when they went to indict him, which is what you do when you're going to go to court, you charge someone, it wasn't in there. It was never charged at trial. The jury never ruled on it. He was never convicted of it. They were just gone. And it did deprive him of bail, or the judge used that as part of the reason to deprive him of bail. But And the judge used it at sentencing, even though it had not been ruled on by a jury, which actually is a violation of the Sixth Amendment and was one of our arguments to the Supreme Court. We have trials for a reason. Mm-hmm. We have a jury for a reason. The Sixth Amendment was written so that the accused is not subject to a rogue judge or an accusation by a prosecutor that has no proof, which this did not. So there's those. Now, the one in Maryland, which was a separate indictment, he was indicted. He wasn't ever indicted in New York, where the trial was. In Maryland, he was indicted. The evidence, it was based on material that was submitted by Karl Mark Force, who was one of those corrupt agents who is now in prison.
Prison? For what?
Oh, he was one of the corrupt agents I alluded to before, that there were two corrupt agents who were stealing. I don't know exactly how much they were stealing. I think it depends on the amount of Bitcoin, what Bitcoin was worth at different times, but I think I've read over $1 million. And two agents, one a DEA agent, Karl Mark Force, and the other a Secret Service agent, Sean Bridges, had a back door to the Silk Road as part of their investigation into it. And they had full unfettered run of the site. They could change passwords, PIN numbers. They could write chats. They could change what was evidence. This was on the server. Well, they had every opportunity to change anything to suit their needs. And they stole from vendors on the site. And they are now in prison, yes. Wow. And Karl Mark Force, when he was the DEA agent, submitted this accusation that Dread Pirate Roberts, not Ross specifically, Dread Pirate Roberts, this person, this persona that many people use, as I believe, agreed to have someone murdered. And that person was Curtis Green. It was a setup. It was like a sting. Curtis Green himself has tweeted, and it's right on our homepage. He doesn't believe that person was Ross. In fact, from talking to him, I think he thinks it was one of the agents, but I'll let him speak for himself, that they just made up this whole scenario. But the victim, he's donating some of the proceeds of his book to our cause. He told me, I said, would you be afraid if Ross were let out? He's no, I'd love to hang with him and talk to him. I'm afraid when those agents get out. He doesn't think it was Ross. And he also is the one that said, well, I was DPR for a while. Who knows who that DPR is? But because Ross was supposedly DPR the whole time, well, then that must have been him. Meanwhile, like I said, the material it's based on in this chat that was presented to the jurors, and we objected to that because it wasn't proof. They said, oh, there's been no murder. We're not accusing him, but look at this. Just believe us, which of course prejudiced them. Mm-hmm. It was the phoniest thing I've ever seen. I mean, Ross types like a techie. You don't hardly see a capital letter. It's very brief. It's very, you know what I'm talking about. This was wordy and perfectly punctuated. And look, to me, it sounded like both sides were written by the same person, like a nice little essay. But anyway, that's my personal take on it. But in any case, it was the corrupt agent.
Audience. So first question somebody has is, how's Ross been handling prison life?
I am so impressed and proud of Ross about how he has handled it. And he's been to some pretty difficult places. Ross is one of these people. He's intentionally positive no matter what. He remains good-natured and trying to be optimistic. He's always tutored fellow inmates. He's educated, and a lot of these guys aren't. He's tutored them. He's helped many of them get their GED, which is a high school equivalent. Also, he helped 4 of them, I believe, get into a correspondence course to college. There's 100 letters on our website of people who actually know Ross. 4 of them are from fellow inmates. And I'm sure we could have gotten a lot more if we kept trying to get them, but this was to the judge during sentencing. He was transferred after 3.5 years in New York to a federal penitentiary in Florence, Colorado, where the Supermax is. He was not in the Supermax. He was in the step down from the Supermaxes, which is full of violent gangs, violent people, really tough situation. There were stabbings. There was a murder while I was, when he was there, beatings, all kinds of things. But Ross managed it really well. He had nonviolent friends. They kind of stuck together. He also there was, he was about to lead a math class when he was, what happened was he was pressured into, or was being demanded that he beat up another inmate for being a snitch. And later, actually, the guy talked to Russ, said, I'm not a snitch. This was totally framed. But in any case, he refused. He said, I'm not going to beat up some guy. I'm not going to do it. I'm not violent. I'm not going to go beat him up. And some of these people who get beaten up in there end up in the hospital with concussions, all kinds of things. But by refusing, he became a target and he was going to get beaten up. So he put himself in danger to refuse, but he did refuse. And he checked himself into what's called the SHU, the segregated housing unit. And that was for his own protection. So now he was in there basically in a metal box with another person for 3.5 months, and then was moved to a safer place. And thank God that's where he is now. But during that time, he in that prison, and I'm sure he'll be the same way here. He was, he'd help guys write letters. He was, everybody liked Ross, and even the guards would come up to me and go, he shouldn't be in here. I hope you get him pardoned. He shouldn't be in here. And his counselor and his case manager and the legal department even talked to our lawyer and said, we know Ross is, if this is crazy, what is he doing in here? And actually his security level score, which is what the score they give you when you're in prison to decide where you go, is a 10. That is so low that he would be in a camp with no fences except for this life sentence. And lifers are automatically put in the harshest, most violent places in our system for at least many years until they prove they're not going to, whatever, this is what this judge did to him. She put his life in danger.
That's very eye-opening. Okay, let's take the next question. Next question is, what can we do to help Ross write letters, send books, etc.? Does he have any preference?
Well, thank you so much for asking that. Well, both questions. I really appreciate your caring about him. One of the things I worry about, and I think he does a little, is that he'll be forgotten. And one of my jobs is to make sure he's not. And not only for him, but he represents so many people. So of course he would love to hear from people, letters. They've limited the number of books he can have. So right now he doesn't need any books, but if you'd prefer to donate to his commissary, that helps him, because what you might spend on a book or something, because that helps him, first of all, his diet, amplify his diet, and or just things he can buy on the commissary. So that would be very helpful directly to him. Of course, the petition. Please share the petition. Please sign it and share it. And we have so many people. I have so many people come up to me and go, "Oh, I really support you." I said, "Have you signed the petition?" And they go, "Oh no, I haven't done that yet." And I'm like, "Please sign the petition." But
where can people sign the petition?
Okay, so you can go to freeross.org. There's a big red banner, or directly to freeross.org/petition, and it'll take you right to change.org. So it's just easier to do that. And that'd be absolutely great. The other thing is to support us on social media and help us change the narrative. So many people, like with that murder for hire, people go, well, he's in there for murder. Well, first of all, no one was murdered. That is not, there's no question. And he was never charged. That's no question. It's all in the record. And if you look at Railroaded, you'll see it's all documented. It's not our opinion about what happened. It's in the record. And we just thought that there should be the record should be made more accessible, because it's very complicated. It's very dense. And it sounds boring. Oh yeah, I sure want to read a narrative about the record. People have told me it's riveting and they couldn't put it down, because it unfolds this crazy story in a way that's easy to read or listen to. So I really recommend it. But help us change the narrative. Follow me and Ross on Twitter, Facebook, all that. And if anyone has any political connections, please contact me. I'm there. The footer on every page of freeross.org has a way to contact me. I'm very easily gotten a hold of. And any connections or any help politically would be great.
All right,
and
guys.
Any other things, we have a take action page, and if you have particular skills or ideas, yes. One thing we're trying to do, if you're a student, is we're trying to have campus-wide petition drives on various campuses. And we're actually working with Students for a Sensible Drug Policy they're going to be pushing that at their conference in March, their national conference, to get their different chapters to do this. But we're also supported by, you know, Students for Liberty, Young Americans for Liberty, people against the drug war, you know, and just people that care about this kind of injustice. We want to reach out to campuses because I feel like students are a great resource for petition drives.
Absolutely. Now, people are asking, is there a BTC address where they can donate?
Oh, yeah. Yes. There's a donate page on our website. It's a red button at the top. And you can donate in all kinds of crypto or in fiat currency or, yeah, both ways. So yes, that would be awesome. We do still have a lot of legal bills and expenses coming up. So every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. So
for those asking, I'm currently in Miami, Florida. That's where I am right now. Okay, so next question. Do you know anybody that has some kind of direct personal contact with Donald Trump to increase the chances your petition will be taken into consideration? Well, I think that's the ask, right?
Yeah, I mean, I personally do not, but I'm working on getting people who do or can get his attention, and I intend to go to Washington, D.C. and just talk to different people in Congress who care about criminal justice reform, who care about over-sentencing. It's quite a big issue right now. Also celebrities who care about it. I'm trying to, you know, get their attention, who can help.
Backing the movement, right? Roger Ver and some others.
Oh, yeah, Roger does, but Roger, I don't believe has particularly direct contact with the president, but oh no, Roger and, you know, that we have many supporters that are very prominent in the movement. Roger has been from day one almost.
Yeah, I think Charlie Lee as well recently posted something about it.
Who?
Charlie Lee, founder of Litecoin.
Charlie did. Charlie's supportive. And Eric Voorhees. Eric actually went to visit Ross because he was in Colorado. They got along great. He's been very supportive, and others, you know, and a lot of our crypto donations are anonymous, but a lot of people in the space have been spoken out for Ross. And we have a whole page, actually, widespread support page of different people who say, you know, yeah, this is wrong. And many of them are Bitcoin and crypto people that are on there.
Okay. Next question. Have you thought about writing a book on your behalf or his behalf?
I do intend to write a book. I want to see how the story turns out. I want it to have a happy ending. So, and also I'm so busy. I'm taking a lot of notes. I mean, it's been quite a journey for me, a woman of my age who had no time. I didn't even have a smartphone. I got a smartphone given to me by my daughter, a hand-me-down 2 weeks before Ross was arrested. I was completely not into the whole tech thing. And I've had to have very steep learning curve. And then I've had to learn the law. I've had to, you know, there's a lot of things I've had to do. I feel like I was trying to write a book at the same time and actually ended up in the hospital, not because of the book, but just too much. And I think
now, there is a book I saw,
you know,
Kingpin.
Yes.
Can you speak to that book?
Yeah, Nick Bilton, the author, actually, when I was leaving the courthouse, grabbed me outside the courthouse, said, I want you to be involved in this book. And then he really urged me by email. He really wanted me to be involved in the book. And I was advised by someone who knows him and is on the kind of the inside, and I trust, do not get involved with that book. He's completely going to be writing the government side of things, their narrative. And then later, that same person said, I know, because I saw it, that he said that he got fed material by the government a year before trial. So I haven't read the book entirely. I've read some excerpts, and even those excerpts are very distorting and sensationalized. And the Curtis Green is very upset about how he was portrayed. He's told me that. Ross's girlfriend, Julia, also said she thought it was just propaganda. To me, I'm not saying it's all fake, but I think I'll give you just a quick little silly example. Because I was reading about it. I'm reading an excerpt. And it said, oh, Ross was, basically portraying him as this weirdo loner guy. He lived in a basement and he blah, blah. Well, I was in that basement because I visited Ross in college. It was in a house he owned. It was a finished basement with a carpet and office and windows. And then upstairs, he was renting out rooms to other students. That was the basement. Now, yes, it was a basement. So I can't say, no, he wasn't living in the basement. But what kind of picture does that paint? And I kept reading that kind of stuff over and over again. Plus, what is Ross was thinking this at the time? I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. You know what Ross was thinking, this sort of thing. It's fictionalized. Honestly, if you want to know, based on the record, please read Railroaded. It's it's not it is entertaining. It's not meant to be entertainment, but it, like Bilton's book, which I think he wrote to have a movie made out of it. But it's just the facts
All right.
of the record. I don't know if the record's correct, but it is on the record.
Okay, let's see. Somebody's saying writing a book and doing mainstream interviews would help get more attention for Ross and political clout.
Yeah, it might. I think a book would be good. I intend to write one. Ross, I believe, wants to write one. Mainstream interviews, we have done some. The problem for me with them is that they've backfired often because they're very interested in the sensationalizing the story, sensationalizing the murder for hire allegations. They're not particularly interested, as far many of them, not all, but I would say even most of them. They need clickbait. They want to, and I have done it, and I've regretted it almost every time. And I'm like, I don't think in this case any publicity is better than no publicity. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It's a risk, and it's hard to say. I mean, it's been a grassroots movement, and but maybe that's true. I just it's scary because of what the power they have and the megaphone they have and how they're so inaccurate. And so, the stuff they say is just plain wrong. It's, half the time,
Yeah, totally agree.
More than half the time. Yeah.
Now, if anybody has any questions, go to menti.com, menti.com, and use the code 773480, the 773480. Now, is there anything else you want to cover in terms of what you're working on with the Free Ross movement? Anything we can maybe kind of dig deeper into?
This has become a bigger cause for me than just Ross. And it is for Ross too, because of the people he's met, the families we've met, and what's happening in our country with the criminal justice system. And I think people really need to wake up to this. And the drug war is fueling this. Before the drug war, there was parole in the federal system, which now there is none. If you're convicted like Ross was of life, you die in there. There's all these dying and sick people in the federal prisons now who are not a risk to anyone, and it's costing a fortune. But what's even more alarming is that before the drug war, the prison population stayed at I think, pretty steady 180,000, which is a lot of people, but it has metastasized 800%. And now if the prison population were a state, it's larger than 11 states. A friend of mine called it the United States of incarceration. This is crazy. One of our states could be the prison population. And so many people in there shouldn't be there. There's a friend of Ross's in the last place he was, named Tony. He is doing a life sentence on the third strike law for marijuana that an informant said he sold him 13 years ago. And to add even more irony, the prison is in Colorado, where it's legal at the state level, but it's a federal prison. Life for marijuana, totally nonviolent person. That's just one of so many. And this has got to stop. I mean, it's evil. It's so un-American. And they're continuing. They're making, since the drug war, it's cost taxpayers $1 trillion. That money's going somewhere. And there's a lot of people feeding at the trough. And it is really evil because it's basically human trafficking when you think about it. It's basically human beings are being used to make money and to shred our constitutional protections as well. So that has become a bigger cause for me. And I get to know the families. I get to know the kids. I see the children leaving their dads. You know, they come in, they're all so excited to see them and wearing I Love My Daddy t-shirt and everything, and, you know, loving on them the whole time. And then they're torn away and they're shattered. They're sobbing and they're damaged. I mean, you know, 2.9 million children have incarcerated parents in this country. And over 60% of the people in prison are nonviolent, mostly drug offenders.
Now, Trump did recently pass the drug reform bill, right? I think Donald Trump recently passed the drug reform bill, which I think, I guess.
It was a prison reform bill.
Yeah,
prison reform bill. Yeah. The First Step Act. And it was a great first step. But I'll tell you, I'll just give you an example. It changed the third strike law to be 25 years instead of life. So all these people that I know personally that were in this last prison and their wives and everything were jumping for joy because some of them had already done 18 years. They were going to be out in, 7 years or less. And then they found out it's not retroactive. So it only affects people from now on. And all the people that were put in there for life are still going to be doing life. That's like saying, well, slavery is illegal now, but, oh, sorry, you were a slave already? Oh, sorry, you got to stay a slave. Just from now on, it's illegal. I mean, that's crazy. Change. This is a good first step. And they even had trouble getting that to the Senate. If it weren't for Donald Trump pushing it, it would never have gotten to the Senate. And so that was controversial. And there's other things in it that are good. There's a lot of details in it. It's definitely a great thing. It's a great first step, but it's not enough. We need to keep going.
Okay. People are saying to get an interview with Joe Rogan.
A lot of people say that. I don't, I'd love to go on Joe Rogan's show. I don't know if they'll have me. Pardon me?
Yeah, people are saying Joe Rogan or Oprah. So if anybody has any connections there, definitely.
Yeah, ask Joe Rogan. I mean, people tweet that to him all the time. I haven't had an interview with him. I'd be very happy to talk with him. I think, he did an interview with Alex Winter, who was the director of Deep Web, and seemed very sympathetic. So.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. People are saying make a true story movie. Since people like the movies as well. Yeah,
no, I mean, of course there will be, but it depends on the story, right? I agree with you. I mean, a book and a movie and, all those things are something that I think will eventually happen, but we want to make sure it's not distorted.
Okay. All right, people, if you have any last questions you would like to ask, please send them our way on menti.com, menti.com. The code, once again, is 773480, 773480. Okay, now, what happened to the people around Ross when everything happened? His friends, the community, how are they kind of dealt with everything, with the aftermath?
Yeah, it's been, it's so hard on families and friends when this happens to someone. It's so difficult. It's almost like they're dead, but they're not dead, and you can still save them. I mean, I'm not saying it's better to have them dead, but it's kind of like that kind of loss where you wake up in the morning, you're like, can this be real? I mean, it took me a long time to go, wait a minute, I can't believe this. This is like out of some kind of bizarre movie. It's very hard on us. We love him, and every single person in our family has stood by us. They know Ross. For his bail, we had friends and family members put up their homes, their life savings. It was a real grassroots thing because nobody's super wealthy. And we raised $1 million in pledges for his bail, and they still wouldn't give him bail because they trust Ross. They know him. He has integrity. And they're, like I mentioned, those 100 letters on our site of people who actually know Ross. Read a couple of those and you'll see who he is. But in any case, it's hard. But we've been so blessed and lucky because so many people, because of who Ross is, have stood by us through now over 5 years of fighting this. Our families, members, friends, in all kinds of different ways have helped me with my fight, where I was just one example. I was just visiting Ross in Tucson, and some friends and supporters put me up, loaned me a car. I didn't have to spend defense money or my personal, very much dwindling money on that. You know, that's just one example. It just happened, but so many people. So people have stepped up and stood by us, and that's given us so much encouragement. And at this conference, I'm sure I will see many of them. It really keeps me going because it's a grind. It's day after day. I'm on this, and it's difficult. But we you know, most of us are optimistic. We have hope. It's so wrong. The sentence is so wrong that we believe it's possible. It's just a matter of when, and I just hope it's not when he's old, you know, or I'm gone or whatever. I would like it to be, you know.
Now, are you teaming up with any other people who've had the same fate from the government to maybe make this a pretty big movement?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to those people. I've worked with some of them to get their petitions up, but I've also networked with, for instance, there's a group called Buried Alive, great group, and I'm in touch with them. They focus on nonviolent drug offenders who have been given life sentences. They have a very specific niche, and then also we've been supported by others. Other groups have written to the Supreme Court and have come out for us. We have a whole list of supporters on our website, and many of them are these criminal justice warriors trying to make changes. And I'm going to continue to, you know, work with hopefully them and be a spokesperson if they want me, and just trying to get the word out to people so they understand this is a very evil thing that's going on. It's wrong. It's un-American. It's new. This is new. This is a new tack that the government has taken since the 80s. That's relatively new in our country's history. And we're the biggest incarcerator on the planet. This is America. This is so wrong.
Okay, next question from the audience. Did Ross take commissions or fees from the transactions on Silk Road?
Well, according to the evidence Dread Pirate Roberts did, the question is, who was Dread Pirate Roberts at any given time? I assume, I'm making an assumption now, that while Ross was, he did. But according to him and according to a lot of the record, he wasn't there the whole time. So whoever was Dread Pirate Roberts at the time, yes. And to the degree Ross was, yes. But Ross said he got out, you know, fairly early because he's not a computer programmer, and he got overwhelmed. It was got kind of out of control. And so.
All right. Any last words before we wrap up the interview? Anything else you want to share with the world?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm the one. I thought you were talking to a questioner. Yes, I would like to say that, I believe we're at a tipping point in history. And I've said this before. I think we're really at a very delicate place in history where we have to decide which way we're going to go. The surveillance state is getting much more intrusive. The government is getting much more controlling. And are we going to go that route, or are we going to go towards more freedom and innovation and individual liberty? I mean, we're really kind of at a crossroads here, and it's up to us. And, you know, I'm immersed in this case, but this is a bigger fight than this case. The courts are grappling with these issues, and we need to you know, make a decision how we're going to go. And especially all you young people, I assume most of the people watching are young. This is your future. How do you want it to go? And are we going to let this kind of horrible sentencing and draconian measures against people who are really, Ross is a pioneer. He was an innovator. Maybe maybe a reckless one at the time, but he was an innovator, and that's what he was trying to do. Are we going to stand by and have this innovator caged for the rest of his life? So let's decide which way we're going to go. And, you know, I'm voting for the freedom road.
Okay. All right. One last question from the audience. How did Ross hand over control of the website when he left it?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance. He actually, I don't know the answer to that. There is an answer. I do not know the answer.
All right. Well,
it's a technical answer, and I don't know the answer.
Hopefully you guys loved that interview. Thank you so much, Lyn, for coming on here. I mean, this is definitely a fascinating story. We definitely
Thanks for having me.
support you. If people want to support this, go to freeross.org. That's FREEROSS.org. And everything is up there, the petition and any donations. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It's a pleasure. And thank you, Lyn, once again. And wishing you guys all the best.
Thank you, Ian. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.